We're going to jump into it, guys. Today, my goal with you guys is that by the end of this week, so by the end of Thursday's call, that we're going to use ChatGPT we're going to upload some information and come up with a 3-4 page plan for each of your businesses in continuing education. And what I realize is that a lot of businesses run successfully without much of a program at all. So part of today, I just wanted to add some more color, help you see some different angles to it. As I was writing it for today, I thought, man, I'm really trying to sell this, and I think I am. I think that it's worth selling. It's worth putting it out there to say, hey, here's what's possible, and maybe you guys will stretch a little bit bigger inside of your programs. So let me show you what I mean. Um, this is where we're at. And of this HR engine, when I go back and visit clients from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, this is always the weakest piece for them later. And I take responsibility that maybe I didn't sell it enough to them or set them up for success. But it's a well, offboarding as well, but of the major four, attracting people to your business, interviewing, inducting, and ongoing education, it's the one that gets neglected, and you can operate without it. But I'm going to try to convince you that you'll be a lot better and stronger with it in place. So that's Thursday. We already talked about that. I also realize I don't have great visibility with where you guys are at so far with your ongoing education. I realize that some of you don't do anything, and that's fine up until this point, right? If you haven't had to do much, and I want to make the distinction from induction training, right? Induction training, totally separate than what we're talking about here, which is ongoing education for your business after someone already knows how to do the role and is valuable working for you. So in the chat, I'm going to ask you guys to put these four answers in for me, so I have better perspective in laying this out for you. So first off, in who runs your ongoing education program? If you don't have one, the answer is nobody. Secondly, is who are you educating? Do you run education from time to time for everybody? Is it mostly focused on your leadership team, back of house, front of house, or maybe you have multiple different programs in place? The total number of hours last year, from your staff's perspective, like, was I asked to come in once a month for 1 hour, and there was 12 hours of education last year. You might do your education online, so you send them something, and they spent 6 hours last year doing that, or the answer could be zero. And then finally, an example of some of the education subjects. Is it specialty things when it comes to the kitchen? We do a lot of training and launching a new menu, for example, or a cocktail program. Is it, compliance training that you guys do at the moment mostly? So just open up the chat box, drop the answers to those four questions in so that I can have a better understanding of where you guys are at and what you're currently doing. Mm, okay. All right. Business stuff. Okay, that's great, Felix. Who else has got some info for us? Okay, Brian. Okay, great. All right, so if you're still typing, keep typing because Ali's going to clip these notes for us so that I can follow up with you guys and just keep it in my records. Okay, so all right, sounds like you guys have got some great stuff going and we're going to be building on to that. All right, so let me, uh, where are we here? This one and then share and slideshow. Okay, so guys, first off, I just think it's important for you guys as individuals to have the conversation with your team about, if you're going to build onto your education program, why are we doing this, right? Like what's the major purpose? Mine and most of the top clients, these outliers that I've worked with and coached over the years, they do it for a competitive advantage, right? Like that's the main reason that they do it. And by that, I mentioned this last time, but my for me, it was about tapping untapped potential in people. And this group of quote unquote misfits that I had working for me, people just like me that didn't do well in school, didn't do well at a lot of things in their life, and now was a time to prove themselves. They felt they had a lot to show the world, and we gave them a stage to do that. With Jack, I mentioned, he wanted to be more valuable than a 3 or 4 year hospitality degree, and I believe he's done it and it's showing results. Bob Basham from OSI, one of the the only person I know who's become a billionaire in this industry with a B. He's made about $1.8 billion in restaurants, which is insane, with Outback Steakhouse and Carrabba's and Bonefish and all of those. At the center of his business was his education program. If you went and worked for him, you left better than when you got there. Julio Cabrera, taking bartenders into cantineros, right? This is a professional level in Cuba that you do things that most bartenders do not do. It's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual. And like martial arts, he'll let you know when you're there. And Said Moses, his model's predicated on. He goes into every tier 3 city he goes into. He has to hire, if he opens up 7 or 8 bars in that city, he's got to hire say between 20 and 40 per location. It's a lot of people you need. There's not that many people, on the market. So his model starts at the bottom and works its way up, and you continue to be educated the entire time you're with him. And what I learned about it was that it's low cost. In fact, I'd argue that my education program was a cost benefit to the business because the people that we brought in, everyone stayed after we finished the education and ate and drank and used the restaurants and so on and so forth. And they're extremely high impact if they're done right. On the flip side, a poorly done education program is a loser on all bases, right? Just waste people's time. It's expensive. It's demotivating. So they have to be done right. I'm going to show you some of the keys to getting them done right. This is one of the things I loved about our education program. I learned that A players seek out continuous learning, right? Think about yourselves. Like you don't want to work at a place that's just dying on the vine. No one learns anything. Nothing ever changes. You get up and leave. B players will tolerate a robust education program and they'll really benefit from it. And C players are out the door. So it's a self-filtering mechanism in itself. And this is my belief is that I don't know an outlier business that doesn't have at least a fairly robust education program. I'm sure they're out there. I've just not come across them. And I've come across a lot of businesses. Um, so, it's mandatory if you want to be in that outlier category, which is a really cool place to be. So just before I move on to section two, on the why, um, I'm not prescribing any reason for you to do this. You have to have your own reason and why you're going to do it, who you're going to benefit, how they're going to benefit, what's going to make the program special. But it's really worth, getting that down. So one of the things we're going to do on Thursday is that, because you do have to sell ongoing education to your team. You do have to sell ongoing education to um, top prospects that are coming into your business to say, hey, in addition to working for us, you got to come in on your day off sometimes, or you got to do learning at home. And, I'm pretty sure every person you're going to interview has been tainted by poor education in the past. And they'll go, oh God, I don't know if I want to do that. I've been through that before. I'm over it. So you got to make sure you're really clear on how you're going to sell this and then make sure you deliver on it once they get it. Any questions on the why before we move on? Just unmute your mic if you've got a question, but this will be the first page of your first statement of your plan, to say, hey, here's why we're doing this. And I'll give you guys the wording from my staff induction book. Mine was basically saying, hey, education sucked the first time around. It left most of us behind. We're doing it differently here. We're teaching in a way that you can learn. And in fact, we're teaching in a way that you can become the teacher. You must become the teacher. It's part of our program. And some people, it's like, fuck yeah, I want to do that. And other people, it's like, hell no. It's fine. Both of those answers are correct for those people. Okay. If you guys want to jump in at any time, just unmute your mic and like, Ali, you've got three goats for the number two here. What's going on? I think you miscounted your goats. When I started our education program, and by the way, I started it because our A players asked for it. I didn't start it because I thought, hey, this would be a good idea and I've got some spare time. Like people are like, hey, how are we going to teach everyone this? Or when are we going to learn that? Or I feel like we're falling behind a little bit here. And, we scrambled together. But when I started, it was just education for all, and then we broke it up over time. None of this happened overnight, but we broke it up into 5 different groups. We have an all, the specific education that runs in that bucket. I'm going to show you what we taught each of these groups. And I want you guys to think about who you want to teach in phase 1. And I'm going to suggest that you kind of write your plan that you've got, here's what we're going to do now, as in this year, and here's what we're going to do 3 years from now. And I highly recommend that you work with a smaller number of groups or even just one group and nail it, then do a mediocre job across five groups. So let me run you through what each of these look like and give you some examples to bring it to life. So with our leadership team, it started out just with books. And I say just with books, man, did we crush it with books. Okay, so I bought a book for each member of my leadership team. I also bought the audio program because most of us learn better listening and reading and scoring the book at the same time. The principle that I had with the leadership team was that I think every great leader needs a library. And if you don't have one, here's your first book, and then I'll buy you your second book, and maybe you'll buy yourself your third book. So what we did, these are 4 actual books that we learned from. So Top Grading is an incredible way of hiring. It's a very sophisticated hiring system. So our job was to read it, understand what we could, and then decide what we were going to select from it to implement into our business. We didn't implement the whole thing. We couldn't if we wanted to. So it was a matter of saying, hey, what are we going to cut and paste, and how do we bring this to life? Double Double is actually a friend of mine, Cameron Harold, talks about how to double your revenue and your profit in less than 3 years. So many of the principles work for us. Not all of them, and we selected the ones we wanted to try. Great Game of Business is Jack Stack. It's scoreboarding a business. it makes business fun. It turns it more into like a sport. And then Vern Harnish's book on the end. Vern was a mentor of mine for many years. And we were getting ready to scale. We were going from 3 venues to 8 and maybe 50. We didn't know. And so we wanted to see, well, what do the companies actually do to scale? So what we did with these books was we took 3 months to read a book. But here's the deal, like, 3 months is 12 weeks. A book usually has around 12 chapters. So it was to read a chapter a week. I didn't want to overtax people. And you not only had to read it, you had to write down what you thought we should do with it. And then we had to discuss it. And sometimes we discussed it by email. Sometimes we were face to face. Other times we were on a conference call, right? Then we selected an implementation captain, and that person had 3 months to implement with the help of the team to put the pieces that we wanted in place. And we had a learning captain who organized all the calls, kept the records of everything and all of that. Then we had an implementation captain, and we did 2 books per year, 2 programs per year. Why 2 per year? Because I thought, continuous 12 months a year, people would get tired of it. And we wanted to really implement the things and see them work, the things we put in place. And of course, I didn't want to be doing this during our busiest months of the year. So we selected 2 seasons, winter and other, to do these books in. And our team loved it. We told people before they got hired that this is how we operate and what we do. Now, later in time, I hired a business coach, and then we were doing 1 book per year, and we were working with the coach on 1 implementation per year. Right? So again, there's no right or wrong answers. It's just knowing what you're doing and having the year laid out, and away you go. But if you just did this, I guarantee you would crush it. And I can give you a list of about 40 books to choose from. And there's something really cool about seeing your leaders go around. They've got the same book. Why are you guys reading the same book? Here's what we're doing. The book's all scored, notes inside, and then we implement. Make sense? Again, if you have any questions, just jump in along the way. And remember, with us, this is a cyclical affair that you learned, you implemented, then you taught. Right? So we had one person. Once we went out in the field and did this, they'd get up in front of the whole team and say, hey guys, you saw us over the last few months reading this book, doing ABC. Here's our results. Here's what we've been working on. Here's where we've succeeded. Here's where we failed. We'd like any feedback from you guys if it's touched or impacted your job in any way. And here's how we're going to monitor it moving forward. Right? Here are the KPIs for that particular initiative. Our back of house team, right? I find that most back of house teams get kind of neglected, especially when it comes to education. So here's some examples. And again, we only did 6 months of learning, 2 quarters a year. Inventory optimization. So I literally hired somebody for 1 location, and at the time I only had 3 locations. I hired an expert in inventory optimization to come in and teach us and learn. And we did a series of classes, had 2 captains on the project. Then we did what they told us, tracked the numbers. Once we got it right and figured it out, those folks went to my other locations. They became the teachers and taught at the other locations. Knife skills. I had a chef friend come in one day and say, man, you've got like half the guys in the kitchen have horrible knife skills. I'm like, really? I didn't know. I'm not a chef. And so we hired someone to come in with knife skills. And basically someone had to start from the ground up to learn this, and not just chopping, cutting, how to take care of your knives. And, so it's a pretty cool course. It was only like 4 sessions over the course of a month, but it was valuable. We spent 3 months on the kitchen P&L. All of them had to master the P&L. You think chefs are more inclined to run a better business if they understand the numbers? Absolutely. And then the P&L for the kitchen got posted every month, so they knew how to read it and see their own results and what they were getting. And then optimization and efficiency. So we looked at every aspect of the business that they were handling. So, for example, the line in the kitchen and tracking things like, we had a camera up in the kitchen and looking at the order when something came in and how it went, and we looked at reconfiguring and moving this there and using different tools and so on and so forth. We were able to get our kitchens safely moving 10 or 12% faster. That's a lot of time and a lot of money during peak hours. Okay, so again, they did 2 seasons per year, and they were also invited to the all education. So that was 12 sessions a year, right? And somebody asked me last time, was the education mandatory? Our deal is that attendance was taken. You were expected to be there, but I hired adults. If you had to be with your kids, you had to be elsewhere. Okay. If you couldn't organize to be there, okay. If you're not there on a regular basis, it means you're not committed to this. It means you're not committed to one of our core values, which was being an avid student and a patient teacher. If that wasn't you, you were just at the wrong building, right? You weren't meant to work with us. But I had single moms. I had a lot of people that had other obligations. Okay, front of house. We had an expert come in with teaching like the language around and the science around an advanced recommendation. It was fascinating. I'd estimate that I was able to absorb about half of it. But the half that we did, we kind of documented, and it became part of our, she taught us about looking at cues before you get going, a couple of specific questions, and then reading the body language as you're going. I mean, she took us up another level in 2 sessions, right? And then we spent the next 10 weeks tracking it, practicing it, measuring it. Body language, the 301 body language was insane. It's like not even about the body, it's things happening around the body, the way they move a plate, push a thing, cock their head. It was a fascinating series. And this was 6 sessions, 2 on 101, 2 on 201, and 2 on 301. Storytelling was my favorite of all of them. Most people, including myself at the time, were shit storytellers, right? Storytelling is a huge part of selling and connecting people to your brand. Every business should be studying storytelling and figuring out how to pass that on to your staff. And then we had an expert come in, communicating with special groups. So the elderly, it was 2 sessions. It was actually really entertaining. They brought an elderly woman in who was a riot. Kids, they gave us 10 things to do with kids to earn their trust, to connect with them, to handicapped, right? Like up until that point with all the restaurants I worked in, I didn't have any training with handicapped people. And the fact is I wasn't doing it right when it just meant that I wasn't making them feel comfortable. I was over compensating for them. And that makes them feel like I don't need that. I could get there without you. So you don't have to clear the whole restaurant for me to get through. And there was just about 7 or 8 things that I needed to change in my approach to it. So again, 2 seasons per year, we work with the front of house team, not in the height of summer, and they also attended the all education. Okay, so what is all education? This is when we invite everyone that works in our business. There's no exceptions. There's no one unworthy of being educated. Again, if you can't make it, you can't make it. Secondly, we had a number of seats, so we had a captain for these. Our education captain either served 3 months or 6 months. So you either did 3 events or 6 events. We took the number of seats and then we gave the other seats away to the industry, sometimes to customers. If we had something like on parenting, we would say, hey, we got 21 seats left for our thing on parenting. Someone saw this person before, they're incredible, and they would go like that. And now I got my staff sitting beside my customers learning about parenting. So we call it the Inside Out series. 1 month was on inside our industry. The next month was outside the industry. It ran monthly. Registration opened for 3 days, and it was like Eventbrite or whatever you were buying a ticket, but of course it was free. And then we'd open it up to other bars and like I said, to customers where it was appropriate. So the Inside series, we had a lot of peer presentations, and guest speakers and our customers, right? So very low budget to do these things and high impact. So your bars have thousands of customers. I bet you've got 10 kick-ass speakers who'd be willing to come in and volunteer to come in for an hour and speak to your team. Ours were up to 75 minutes. I was fine if they were 30 minutes. But didn't want to ask people to come in if it was less than 30 minutes. So 30 to 75, they typically went 75. But we were really big on the Q&A section at the end. So we wanted to leave 30 minutes for Q&A. And then afterwards, so we gave people a drink without charge, but then afterwards, because we invited other bars to most of them, we would have food, drinks, just the bar would be open and a band. I love live music and it was kind of like it became like an industry night. And we had a wait list for these tickets. We had hundreds of people that were on the wait list to come. And if they didn't get into this one, we rolled it to the next one. It's a really cool thing. And we would have the main bar that I used because we were limited. We only had 2 venues that had live music setups, and one of them didn't have a very good room at all for it. So the room that we used had about 80 seats, and we typically have 20 people standing. So we had up to 100 people that would come to it. Halfway through our first year, every single one was sold out. So it worked. The Inside the Industry series, one that really stood out to me was WorkFit, and it talked about different positions and different muscles that you need to maintain to stay healthy in that position. Like bartending, for example, is incredibly demanding. And so is working in the kitchen on your feet with the heat and everything. And then it had stretches before the shift. So all of our pre-shift meetings, by the way, involved stretching. We stretched and we talked. And we got that from this. And you could stretch for 2-3 minutes and set yourself up for a successful shift. One guy I remember came over, let me know he was coming from New York, and he said he just finished his bar safari, seeing what was new and everything. He put together a trend on New York cocktail trends. And if you're sitting in Sydney at the time, it was like a look into the future. Like we were like, holy fuck, and they're paying what? And the glassware, and then he took photos of all the stuff. It was an incredible, incredible 75 minutes. The guy was 22 years old. He's a bartender in New York, not a professional speaker, just a really enthusiastic guy who wanted to share his city with us, and it changed us. Like it just set the bar. Dealing with difficult guests, and by this I don't necessarily mean intoxicated or just grumpy people, but like people that are difficult to get to, difficult to connect with, and closed off. And we had this speaker come in and talk to us about this, and it was fascinating. Things that I'd used with a friend, or so just cool things like that inside the industry. Just some notes on the education series. So again, it was 12 per year, 6 inside, 6 outside. Most speakers were known to us, not professional speakers. Here's one of the keys, guys. We never ran an education event without giving a blind poll out to our staff. I was not going to be the guy to ask people to come in on their day off for a shitty session or something that they felt they wasted their time. So no one put their name on it. They rated the event, what they liked about it, and then what we could do to improve. So yeah, and we used all that feedback and we published it. We said, hey, here's what we heard, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to make it 1% better or 10% better if it's a big one. And all our speakers received a gift. So the captain was responsible for buying a gift and hopefully something meaningful to that person. Like we were asking them to come in, spend some time with us, and we would make a call or two and find out and try to give them something that was going to be meaningful to them. And then once we got rolling, we kept our captains in place for 6 months to a year. Because the learning, doing your first couple of events, and the former captain hopefully was still in the organization. They stayed on as an advisor to help people. But once we had someone really good, we're like, fuck, let's stick this for a year. And it was awesome. So for my leadership team, very little weight on them. This was a series that was run by our staff and me. I like being involved in these. Okay, last one here is our specialty series. So specialty, what's important to note here is these were for individuals or a couple of people. And I'll give you some examples. So typically one or two people. They came to us often with, hey, I want to learn about this and it's going to have a benefit for the organization. And I said, okay, great. Don't come to me with the idea unless you tell me how much it's going to cost. Because if you're coming in and it's an idea that's got a little impact, it's got a big price tag on it, we're probably not going to do it. So they had to pitch us on the budget. These specialty products, they had up to 3 months to do the learning portion of this. Could be books, could be courses. It was often immersion learning. So they go do shadow shifts somewhere else. Sometimes we'd send them another business in Sydney, another business around Australia. Sometimes we'd send them to London or the States, depending, if it was going to be a big boost for us. And then they'd have to present to the group afterwards, and then they'd embed for whatever period of time it took and I'll show you some examples of what these things were. Garnishes we did, and this was only done in Sydney, so we sent them to 3 different businesses. And the reason I think a lot of businesses allowed us to shadow is we had a lot of people come and shadow and watch what we were doing. And so garnishes was one. It was amazing. At the time, we were basically just doing lemons and limes and straight cut. Batching, this is one that we sent somebody to LA for. There weren't many businesses in Sydney that we could find. We called around and that we're batching like within a decent cocktail program. One of our guys asked if, he said, hey, we can get a lot better deal if I can butcher here. And we had room to do it. And I'm like, really? And he did a course. It was a 10-week course on butchering. And we basically would bring in large cuts of meat into that one kitchen I had, and it'd go out to our other kitchens. So yeah, he pitched that to us, and we're like, we looked at it and we said, I think it'd be worth taking a shot on. Running staff meetings. So one of our leaders went to 3 different companies and attended 5 different meetings. So we attended 15 meetings, took notes, batched it up, and discussed how we're going to run our meetings moving forward. Music programming. We were just buying playlists and getting, and it wasn't really tied to the rhythm of the business and all of that. So we arced that up. I sent someone from each store to do, we did all locations. I think we had 5 stores at the time. I sent 5 people to do a first aid course. Someone wanted to do it, and I said, yeah, it'd be handy to have on hand. And then they taught just the basics of like even bandaging a cut from the kitchen and, what happens if a customer gets, how do we handle that? And then we really started to study induction programs. And we did that primarily within 2 businesses, one in Australia and one in LA. And we had 2 managers that went through and did the induction program from end to end at 2 big companies, restaurant companies, though. And we learned a ton. That's how that was the basis of our rebuild for our program. Okay, last thing here, and then we're going to open up your mics for questions and discussion. So the keys to success with ongoing education. I already mentioned this. It's worth repeating. You got to get feedback on every session, because if you have half the room saying this is bullshit, it's not going to work. If you have 20% of the room saying if you just change this one thing, we'd be a lot better off, you got to know. Short, some of these sessions could have been 3 hours long, but 75 minutes was our max. Most of our people couldn't sit for much longer than that. And as I said, as short as 30 minutes. And if it can be done, if your education, some of it can be done like at pre-shift with an 8-minute course, even better. People don't have to come in. And now we can do it online and Zoom and everything else. It's really key that your leadership sets a tone. Like all of our leaders were expected to be. We laid out our education 6 months in advance. And I'm like, if you can be here, please be here and set the tone, ask good questions, get involved, bring good energy, all of that. Not everything, but most everything should have a practical application. Like we weren't learning for the sake of learning. We were trying to better ourselves and the business. And, like I said, the 75 or the 30 minutes at the end, it was for Q&A and practice time. Sometimes we stood up in a group of 3 people role played, whatever, like just getting your hands dirty with it made a lot of sense. I just put this in, you guys probably already know this, but blending the learning style for visual learners, auditory, and can see that I can't even say that word, kinesthetic. Yeah, the kinesthetic learners. So that's just hands-on people. So what we did with our presenters is we gave them a one page, like say, hey, this is how our people learn best. We're not trying to tell you how to do your job, but just know that, this is a group of people that learn best ABC, and most of them follow the bouncing ball. And then last thing here is how did it work in my group? I definitely attracted people. One of our core values was you had to aspire to, or you already were an avid student and a patient teacher. So no one came to work for me unless they convinced us that they were going to live into this. The first thing that they got their hands dirty with at my organization was an aggressive peer-led program in your induction program. So if you weren't a learner and you didn't like this, we're going to find out real quick. Our survey every year on our birthday or a week before our birthday, we run a survey about the organization. How could we be better and everything else? Why did you come and work for us in the first place? The number one reason was our learning program, which blew me away. Was flattered. And then our numbers. Fuck, we made good money. We grew like crazy, had almost no turnover, and we had 25 qualified applications for every vacancy. Right? Like you just can't get better. And because and over 70%, like 72, 73% of our staff said they were extremely satisfied with the job, the role, the whole thing. And of course I was focused on the other 25% of people, but it doesn't work that way. You're not gonna make everybody happy all the time. All right, so questions. I know it was a lot to digest, but I wanted to open it up so you guys can see kind of what's possible over the course of a few years. What questions have you guys got? Or what of that resonated with you that you might look to implement?
Yeah, I've still got my biggest hurdle. We do them, but we only do them with our upper management group. But sort of getting all the staff in, how did you go about that? Was it we're offering, hey, we'll all have a meal together afterwards and a few drinks afterwards, without that cost of, $33 an hour of going, hey, this is a mandatory attendance, and adding more wage cost each week or once a month or something? Or is that something you just sucked up and just said, well, it's going to cost us and we just pay them to come in?
Yeah, so we did pay staff to come in. It was part of our sunk costs in it. We told them before they were hired and said, listen, it's not mandatory. I'm not going to tell you what to do if it's your day off, but you're expected to be there. You've told us you want to learn and grow, and this is how we're learning and growing. And we're going to make it fun. Like you're going to come in, and then if you can't stick around afterwards, that's fine. But you're going to have other industry peers there, and it became like the biggest industry night in Sydney. We could only have 100 people, but we'd have a restaurant. We either had them on Monday or Tuesdays, depending on what was going on there. It was typically the first Tuesday of every month until it wasn't, other bookings or whatever. But we would come out of that room with 100 people, and there'd be 200 people in the restaurant on a night that would otherwise be very quiet. So we said it's part of our program. It's fun. If you can't do it, you don't want to do it. It's going to show up in your review, right? Like that's where your attendance and not being there. Having said that, we had some amazing staff that were single moms or that took care of their parents and they couldn't make it. And I get it. I get it. They made it when they could, but they missed more than half. And you know, if they're good enough, people are going to want to go. The pay, for us back then, it was $15 an hour, whatever it was, and by X amount of staff, it adds up. But there was always a benefit for us. Felix, what resonated with you there? What piece of that?
Actually, we have been doing stuff like that, irregularly, not with a proper plan. So I really like the idea of polling staff members and getting in topics. However, our go-to has always been not just for our company, but we've also invited other bartenders from other bars. And
Mhm.
now I'm wondering whether that's the better move on the long term, or whether it's better to kind of keep it amongst us to have an advantage.
Well, I can tell you that our advantage was that we developed a list of over 2,000 staff around Sydney. That's how many people over time came through, signed up. You had to give us your email and your phone number in order to get invited. And the number one question that was asked on that night is, "Are you guys hiring?" Right? Because they got to meet all the managers. We had fun people too, and but pros. Like we had people that were had their shit together and they were serious about learning and we always talked about you're only as valuable as your experience and the education that you can get, and then you can apply it here. And I wanted to have a place that staff would feel comfortable in coming to. We had an item on the menu that, or sorry, we had an item that was not on the menu that was for staff in Sydney that was just above cost so that people could get, and it'd change every week, but it'd be like a hearty, like a bowl of pasta, to be something. And they'd say, the number was number 13 because there's like 12 items on the main section sometimes. So they say, I'll take number 13. There were no numbers in the menu, but everyone knew what they meant. And Allie and I went to a place in Nashville, really, really fucking cool bar. And a member from the industry took us there, and he goes, "This is a place where you can go get a bologna sandwich." And I know that doesn't sound very good to some people, but it was actually delicious. It was like a fried bologna sandwich with a bag of chips and a can of beer for $6, right? And that's how they're looking to take care of industry. And I'm sure they're just breaking even on that. But we did something similar, and yeah, it became an advantage because we had a list of like a couple thousand people, and managers from around town. Like our list was disproportionate managers. We had like I think 400 managers that would attend events with us over time. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it, man. You become the hub of your community, right? And our deal too, I just want to underscore that we were a no poaching team. Like we didn't go into your business and try to take, even people came to us who are currently engaged at another place, right? If you're not working anymore, you've left there and you want to come and hire with us, that's cool. But we don't want you to jump ship to come here. It's just not what we do. And we didn't need to because we had a lot of good people in front. But yeah, developing that list and getting to know all the people and did we want to hire someone who wanted to come to every learning event? Yeah, probably. People want to learn and better themselves. That's cool. Samantha, what resonated for you?
I was actually, I keep getting pulled back to like the back of house ongoing education. I think there's very little that we do for our back of house staff in terms of that. Um, on the other side of the spectrum, though, I was also thinking if that is even something that they would be interested in doing. Um, I think a good handful would be, but I'm not sure we would be able to get everybody on board. Um, but feeling intrigued by the back of house side, especially since, one of our struggles, I guess, always is just consistency around locations or across locations.
Yeah, well, back of house, I had a real affinity for because that's where I started in the industry, and I was also an immigrant in Australia, right? So I had that in common, and a lot of what we did came from we surveyed the staff twice a year and asked them what they wanted to learn, and again, like you were not obligated, but you were expected to say something, right? Like, come on, everyone should be thinking about what I need to learn and what I need to better myself in.
Right.
And a lot of the things that came back from back of house were like real world struggles. Like Australia's got the banking system there in Australia. If you're an immigrant, every country you go to, you've got like a 3-year ghost period where the banks don't want to know you. You don't have a history and everything else. In Australia at the time, I don't know if it's changed, but it was like 6 or 7 years, right? So it's very hard to get any credit established and so on and so forth. So I started asking around and had like found an expert on immigrant like settling and things that you could do. And so he came in and presented, and he's like, okay, you got to get this card here that this like department store will give you, and suddenly you're starting, you have 1%, and then do this, and then do this. And another thing that we learned, it was good for everybody, but it was came from the back of house, was like, I'm never going to be able to afford a house here. So we had someone to say, how would you, if you came to this country and you want to eventually get on the board and get a house, like what are the 5 or 6 moves you would do? Again, it worked for everybody, but particularly in back of house. And when your team sees you serving them like that, like you're listening, right? They're telling you what their issues are, and they're real issues, especially if you're going to have a family. We leaned into that and wanted to help them. And so that's where I'd start if I was you. Like ask them, say, if you could learn anything, or maybe you put it a different way, like what are the biggest struggles you have right now? And you might read those and go, okay, we could maybe look to help overcome this second one here. Yeah, and once you get rolling, get the trust rolling, and there's value in that, and then they're going to talk to you more, and then more, and then you're going to start to weave in like, okay, well, we need to work on these skills, and we got to do this. But I just saw our team. I know the word servant leadership is really overused, but that's how I see things. Like we're there to serve them so that they can serve our team, so our team can serve our guests. And the minute we're not serving them, then we've broken the chain. So yeah, I'd ask them and see what they come back with, and see if we can develop something around that. Sure. Julius. Oh, he's might be gone. Oh no, he's there. We caught him. Oh, I didn't realize you had stepped out.
I'm here. Just right around the corner there.
Was there something that resonated for you and all of that?
Um, yeah, I mean a lot of different things. Kind of like Sam, I guess, in the sense that I'm not sure for us how to get the implementation process started on some of the things outside of what we, have going in store. But whether it's BOH or just creating additional learning environments for folks um, beyond, we had book club even beyond within the management team for quite a few years, but then that kind of went away over time. But nah, I don't know. I guess a lot of them kind of jump out, but I just don't really have a sweet plan right now on how to get the ball moving on them again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got time, and then we're going to rough it out on Thursday. I think the key is this time around for all of us is to not let it kind of slip out, and that's the planning. Just and like I say, smaller number of sessions or initiatives, and better execution, and then kind of build on it over time. So, all right, that's cool. And last one is Nicole.
Yeah, something that stood out to me right away, and I had already texted Julius about it, is actually getting that book club started back up. It's something that I personally loved doing when I was in my early stages of management. So kind of focusing in on the, younger group of managers that are upcoming in it, and continuing their education would be something that I would like to do with them. So
That's great.
we are going to start with the book Traction, just like I did back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I think, the thing about a book club that I learned is that getting the team to say which ideas would work for us, like, taking it from theory or concept to something that you can implement. And like I said to them, if we read this whole book and we get one great idea out of it that works for the business, we've won. Right. And you've won. You've read a business book this year, 2 business books this year, and you're building your library. And that's a big deal. All right. Well, any other questions before we wrap up here? Like I said, Thursday, we're going to write a bit of a widget for ChatGPT to get all of your bullet points into a quick plan, and send it off to whoever needs to look at it or approve it if it's not you. But anything else before we jump off today? We're good? Okay. All right, guys. Well, I will see you Thursday from sunny Mexico. I'll be over there. So, all right. Have a good couple days. I'll see you then.